All right, and then here's the last concept that we're going to talk about. This was one of my favorite quick games this year. I really like spacing. We did a lot of stuff out of bunch and condensed formations, and so this was a good quick game out of our bunch look. And we did a lot of split zone. We ran Y cross out of bunch. I thought, with teams getting in and running a lot of pressure packages and doing some stuff like that, I think the condensed formations are a good way to get teams to check out of their man pressures. It's really hard to play man against condensed formations. So you can get teams to kind of settle into some more of their traditional zone looks when you get into condensed looks. So really like this bunch. Our spacing rules, when we talked about the 4x1 double stick, it's kind of the same landmarks without the mandatory outside release. So when we call spacing, our Y, just like he would on double stick, is going to run his 6-yard sit route over the ball. Okay. The number one receiver, in this case, is condensed down tight in the bunch. He's going to run his dock route 8 yards. All right. And he needs to be 6 yards width from the sit route. Okay. So here we are at 6 yards width from the stick route, which means if you're down in a condensed formation like this, you might have to do what we call spray release. So you can see the angle of this diagram. All right. Is a spray release. We're going to expand, push vertical, and then sit. Okay, so that would be a spray release for us. If you do it from width, then you might have to stem, push vertical, and sit. Okay, ultimately the goal is we got to get to 6 yards width from that. All right, that's how we put this curl flat defender in a bind, is we hold him tight and make him have to choose. Are you defending the wide flat to the field? Are you sitting in tight on that kind of dock / curl route right there? Okay, so we have our sit, we have our dock, and then we have our flat. So the number 3 receiver down here tight is going to allow these routes to clear, and then he's punching and he's going flat right now. Again, aiming 3 to 5 yards width. We want to get width as quick as possible. Width is more important than depth. Okay, just like double stick, opposite the spacing, we're running our 3-step slant. Okay, so that's again a man beater right there. All right, so we just can alert that slant. We can run check swing with our running back, so you can get slant swing to the boundary away from the spacing. All right, you can keep your running back in a protection if you need to. But that kind of gives us that look right there. Okay, so let me show you what spacing looks like. All right, one time from our install. All right, so again, point man's going to run this. The Y is going to run the sit. All right, he's going to run the dock, spray release, get 6 yards width. He wants to be at 8 yards depth, and then we're going to run our flat route off of that. Okay, backside slant, 3-step slant. Okay, now are we getting rotation? Are we getting rotation? Are we getting rotation? Yes, if we're getting rotation. Now we can really throw slant swing off this linebacker, which is what our quarterback does here. 1 step, and he works the slant to the swing. Okay. Now, if he felt like this guy was going to eat the slant, now we can throw the swing out here to the boundary and try to out leverage that thing. But he felt like he could thread that in there. Okay. So again, we will throw this slant backside. This is a good job by the quarterback. And we always tell our slant player, make sure that we're nice and wide. The wider you are, the more grass you have back inside. Okay. So we're going to be wide on that 3-step slant. Okay. So we're seeing strong rotation. You can see safety push. Again, during spring, our defense throws a kitchen sink at us because they're trying to put everything on film. So it makes some of this stuff difficult sometimes, but our quarterbacks get good at it. And now we know, hey, if we get strong rotation, we can work our slant swing backside. Okay, in season. Now this was a little variation. So we call spacing, all right? Like outer space, okay? Now we call this Mars, all right? And so Mars was spacing with rail. So you guys have seen the rail, my mesh concept video. We talked about our rail. So spacing with rail is Mars, all right? And the reason we call it Mars because it's got the R for rail. So all we're doing on this one is we're running spacing to the 3-man side, sit, dock, flat, okay? Now, typically we would run slant and swing, but on Mars, when we run the rail, then we're gonna add a little whip route to it. So he's gonna go 3-step, slant, and return. Okay, so he's going to run that little whip route back there. If we get man, we're going to work rail to whip. So if there was teams that would still try to play man against this. So if they're like, and this is what we saw on film on this team, they were playing regardless of formation, even if it was bunched to the field, they were playing a lot of man to the boundary. Now against us, they didn't do it. Okay, but against other opponents, they're playing a lot of man to the boundary. So we were like, shit, if they're going to play man to the boundary, that means we're going to get our back on their backer. We put our best offensive weapon here in the backfield. So if we could get this guy, this corner, to drive on the whip route, we could get our back on their backer. So we're just trying to create some matchups like that. However, we've taught our quarterback, if we get off zone, work the spacing. So if we get off zone, work your spacing, sit to dock to back, or to flat. So you'll see exactly what happens here. Sit to dock to flat, throw the flat, get it out. All right. And kid makes a couple nice moves. and we get a big gain right there. Okay, so I'll show you this again from the top. All right, this is Mars. So this is spacing with rail. Okay, so, and that's the beauty about this. We talk about dressing these things up with formations and tags. You can get creative on some of this stuff. Okay, so really easy way of doing that. Okay, now I wanted to put this on here. I didn't put the diagram on here, but this is a 2x2 spacing. So again, getting down into some condensed formations, you can condense the whole thing. You can condense half of it. In this case, we condense half of it. Now we're running spacing with the running back. So we're going to run sit. Okay, we're going to run dock, and we're going to run flat. Opposite that, we're going to run inside fade. So we call this ice. So if we go, and again, we try to package stuff. If we go ice, that's a quick game call. It's inside fade. That's the I with spacing, CE. All right, space ends in a CE. So we kind of taught our kids that, right? Ice is inside fade with spacing. Spacing's to our Y side. All right, the inside fade's opposite. Okay, so we're running inside fade to the field, spacing to the boundary. All right, if we get any kind of man-to-man, we'll work that inside fade. Now we're getting cover zero, man pressure. All right, we're gonna work 7 yards. This kid does a good job. The only thing that we should do better here is if you're to the number one receiver to the side of the inside fade, we want to work a wide hitch. If you get man or cloud, you can turn it into a slant. Okay, you can turn it into a slant. What we don't want to do is go inside release and run this hitch, because if it is cover three and they wall and buzz, you're in a bad spot. Okay, but you can see this kid does a good job. We want to push vertical. We can work to 7 yards depth to get on his toes, and then we're going to work that numbers fade. Okay, so we'll go push vertical, get on his toes, numbers fade. Again, this should be a one-step throw from our quarterback though. All right, he takes a three-step here. He had a bad habit of kind of three-step and stuff. We want to go one step. All right, load and release, and you can throw that guy open. All right, so work the inside fade. This is exactly what we want when we throw inside fade, and we just drop it. All right, but you get teams, if the teams are bringing pressure, all right, you can package some of this stuff. If we would have got off zone, we would have just worked spacing to the boundary. All right, but now that we know we're expecting our defense is blitzing the shit out of us, right, in spring ball, now we know we can throw inside fade against this. So now we're packaging stuff. Spacing with inside fade is ice. Okay, so we like that.